Hello, thank you all for joining Simply the Best. I'm Maxwell Summerfield from Citycom. I will be the moderator for this session. This is the second in a series of monthly LinkedIn events. We're going to help share experience, knowledge on some of the challenges in the financial services market. I'm just going to start with some housekeeping. We're all on a live session here, and you'll notice that you're all on mute. If you want to ask a question, please can you use the Q&A section, and we'll attempt to answer these within the confines of a 30-minute session. If we don't get the chance, we'll get back to you post the event. For the new people on the session, Citycom have been around for 10 years operating in the financial services markets. Our heritage is in trader voice, voice quality, and video. And following the first LinkedIn Live that we covered, voice assurance, what is voice assurance, why it's so important to have a comprehensive program. The link is in the comments section of the events page on this LinkedIn event, if you would like to go back and view that. So today we're going to discuss how you get the best from your voice recordings in Simply the Best. So what we're going to cover, making sure you only hear what you need to hear, so only surfacing signals of interest, art of possible, what can be done with your voice recordings, and the market, what's happening out there in the market. Today I have with me Mark Whiteman, CEO of Citycom, and Nigel Cannings from Intelligent Voice. Nigel is a subject matter expert on audio and voice recordings. Intelligent Voice is one of our key technology partners. In the first LinkedIn Live session, we covered how important it is to have that robust voice assurance program. And today we'll look at what can be done with the voice once you have a good voice recording file. If anyone missed that session, again, the link is in the comments, but we also have it on our events page on the website, so you can go over and take a look there. So following the first session, I thought today it would be good to kick off with a poll and get feedback and thoughts on what your voice assurance program looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a poll here and get some feedback from the audience. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to ask Mark kind of to kick off with what really is the issue that people are having with voice.
So thanks, Max. Be good to get a view as to people's thoughts about their assurance program. So that would be really interesting feedback. Maybe we could try and get that before the end of the event, or we'll publish it. But let's start off by just kind of setting the scene around it. We did, as we said, the first LinkedIn Live session was purely around voice assurance and what is voice assurance and what does good look like. But to contextualize, some of the stuff we're going to talk today and what Nigel's going to talk about, thought it would be worth just kind of being pretty obvious about, the challenges of voice. Voice breaks into two categories, really. You've got metadata, that when you do a voice recording or you complete a voice recording, you've got metadata that comes from the telephony systems and it hits the recorder. That in itself is very valuable data, and it's structured data, so kind of easier to work with. And generally speaking, that's simpler to use. Yeah. The problem with voice is, of course, as we know, is that there's something else, which is the voice recording. Often a WAV file or an MP3 or some form of file where the content, the valuable content, is hidden within, and this is unstructured data. Yeah. And we've seen a huge challenge with people trying to get value from that unstructured part of the voice recording. And these files, as we describe them, are separated. The metadata comes in one chunk and the audio files come in the other. Yeah. So our view, and I think what's matured, and I'm sure Nigel will comment on this, is that in order to get the most value, whatever it is you're trying to achieve from these voice files, there's a number of things that need to be in place. You need to understand the accuracy of the quality file of the voice file. Yeah, if it's not a very good quality file, then the art of the possible is you're not going to probably get much value from it. Yeah, understand which of the files are relevant and usable. We've seen a huge amount of unusable and irrelevant files that have been recorded, thrown into processing, which frankly, messes up or gunks up the system and creates a lot of false positives down the line. Yeah. and actually take control of what you want to use of those files to get what you need in terms of the output. Yeah. Once you've got all of that under control, yeah, and you can process the data, yeah, then you can get some relevant and valuable signals or outputs from those audio files. And that's where you can then get very accurate value from your voice files and your voice recordings. So I hope, Max, that gives you a bit more of a definition as to kind of our view as to the challenges that there is around voice that historically have been there and I don't think have necessarily been completely fixed just yet. Max?
It does, and thank you for that, Mark. And really, probably in the last sort of 6 months to a year, we've started to talk about really the signals that you get from your voice files. In the past, it's been, hey, how can you transcribe it, and what do you get? But can you explain what we mean now by surfacing the signals within the audio files?
Sure, and again, I'm sure Nigel will dig into a bit more detail around this shortly. But there are three main things that we see are valuable from those audio communications and those recordings. Of course, without a shadow of a doubt, the keywords, phrases are important. Lexicon searching has been around for a while, but that's not going to go away. But it's not, in our opinion, about finding the accuracy of the spelling and whether or not there is spelt the right way or there's an apostrophe in the right space. This is not a replacement for a stenographer situation. It's, can you find that signal which is the lexicon or the word or the group of words that either causes you a problem or is an item of interest. So that's point one, is the words and phrases. Yeah. The second is sentiment, something that's overlooked from voice largely, and that is the ability to understand in the context of those words being spoken, are people grumpy or are they happy? And the applications of that, both in terms of a trading room or trading floor or indeed a contact center, are as valuable in both to understand trending of that. And the third is biometrics. Passwords and cybercrime is a huge issue. And confirming that via your voice biometric that you are actually who you were supposed to be. It says that I'm Mark Whiteman, but I could be an imposter, particularly if my video was switched off. So therefore, the validation of that accurately by my voice is something, again, extremely valuable and not something that is not already being done, but not necessarily done very well. Yeah. So those would be the three reasons why. I guess the reason why is that, is about value. If you're going to process and you're going to try and get, information from these files, then to get value from it, you may as well process it for all of those three reasons to really get rich value from those files. Yeah. What are the drivers for that? Well, you've got trade reconstruction, surveillance and monitoring, unfortunately litigation further down the line when, things have gone wrong and you need to then, be able to confirm what went on. Yeah. And there's some positive reasons as well. I think that the proactivity of getting in front of this and surfacing the value and those items from a voice call, allows you to do lots of exciting things and get in front of fines, but also allows you to automate voice trading, and confirm that trades and the work that has been done and that people have done a good job, not just that they've done a bad job. Yeah. So I would say, that's what we mean by signals, is it's about surfacing signals that are of interest, both negatively and positively, but not just pure, as you said, Max, voice transcription, which I think the world's moved on from.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that, Mark. So what I'm going to do now, Nigel, it would be good to get sort of your input. You've been an expert in this for the last 10 years, and I'm sure it's been a lot longer, really. But it seems like processing the files and obtaining the signals could be seen as something that could be easy. But can you give us your views and what you're seeing around this space?
Yeah, well, thanks, Max, and thanks for your explanation, Mark, of where we sit with things at the moment. I mean, we're talking about quality files, but let's be honest, that even stuff which passes the initial quality threshold can often be pretty shockingly poor. in terms of what comes out. And almost anyone who's listening to this will have sat down and at one point or another listened to some of the audio that comes off a recorder. And quite often, it's often been mixed. It might be shout down stuff, so you've got multiple people who are on the same open line. It's intelligible up to a point, but it's still in many cases very poor. So there's a lot of work to be done still on improving the overall quality of voice which comes out of the trade floor. And Mark hit upon something really interesting, actually, because one of the areas that we've been looking at recently is that value-added space. And the value-added space in particular can come from things like price scraping, for example. Now, price scraping is something that people have been trying to do for a long time. And I have seen many projects come and go. And the reason why it fails is not because speech recognition technology is bad. It's actually because the quality of the audio which is being presented to the speech recognition algorithm is so poor in itself that you couldn't really expect a human being to do it. So what we're seeing is we've had advances in speech recognition technology, and it's really important to get a handle on this, that in the last 2 or 3 years, the ability for a machine to understand a human in voice has transformed dramatically. And we've been doing a lot of work around how you take poor quality voice and get more out of it. But also we are beginning to see kind of turret vendors, particularly soft turret vendors, who are recording audio in high quality and also providing headsets and providing infrastructure which enables that capture to take place accurately. So, anyone who's sat on a trade floor, we all know there's a huge amount of noise in the background. There's other people shouting. Just using a noise cancelling headset, and I've seen this quite a lot recently, people using noise cancelling headsets dramatically increases the accuracy of what comes out. And with that increase in accuracy, you can then start to do things like better judge the sentiment, for example, because you haven't got kind of noise in the background. You can understand the price and the instrument much better. So we're seeing, the advances in technology have actually come in multiple different areas, and of course working from home has changed things slightly as well, because when you're working from home, we've seen 2 interesting challenges come out of the working from home thing. On the one hand, actually the quality of the data has got better, because actually people are quite often sitting there with a headset on in a quiet room as opposed to sitting on a trade floor, but also the volume of information that's coming through has gone through the roof. So if we'd have been talking 3 years ago about the future of voice, what we might have said is, well, voice is a dying technology, because how many traders are there on the phone today? And how many will there be in 5 years? And how many will there be in 10 years? And you would probably have seen that as a declining market. But we've seen a paradigm shift now, because suddenly in the world of hybrid work, every single person needs to be recorded. It's moved on. It's not just traders. Absolutely everyone in a regulated environment is on a Teams call. So we're seeing massive increases in the volumes that need to be processed, as well as the type of data. There's a lot more I can say, but I'm sure that you've got a few more questions to throw in, Max, before my next rant on something. So
yeah, no, absolutely. So the advances that you've been seeing, is this specifically within financial services, or would you have been saying this is across kind of the board within voice recording?
Well, in terms of voice recording, actually, a lot of it is in financial services. So the actual recording piece, the things like transcription technology is definitely across the board. But we are, as I said, seeing specifically in financial services, a number of people coming out and beginning to take quality seriously. So just really simple stuff like telephone calls are recorded still in technology which was originally developed in 1972, right? It's 8 kilohertz technology, it's poor. But actually, when you're dealing with pure IP traffic over a network and you've got someone with a nice headset and so on, you can record it in 16 kilohertz. And for anyone who's listening who understands that, that means there's just a hell of a lot more data contained within that. And so rather than sounding tinny and small and muffled, it sounds full spectrum and very much like we do here. So just simple changes like that, something which could have been done, implemented 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the technology was there, but the will wasn't. But now people are seeing value coming out of their voice traffic. They're also willing to invest in upgrading the infrastructure with, as we see next generation turrets come in, you upgrade the infrastructure. Why would you replace what you've already got with the same thing? You know, why take something which was rubbish before and have rubbish now? And so that refresh, particularly in financial services, Max, that's where we're seeing it.
Nigel, can I butt in just for a second and ask you a question? Because
of course.
It's something that's been a reoccurring thing that you and I have discussed for a while, but could you just give your thoughts on the difference between transcription and finding something of interest? Because I know that's a passion that you and I have shared. So could you just kind of delve into that in a little bit more detail?
Well, I mean, transcription, one of the issues that we've got, I think, is people perceive kind of, they look at OCR for voice, right? This is really bugs me in terms of people looking at transcription technology. So what happens is if someone says, oh yeah, I've got transcription engine. So, and it's actually, and guess what, it's 85% accurate. And because it's 85% accurate, that means that I have done my job properly. So I am actually, I'm doing proper trade force surveillance. But my counter to that is actually, it might be 85% accurate, but it may be 0% useful. And the reason it's 0% useful is because you've missed the 15% of interesting things which are supposed to be in there. So, you know, when people are looking at technology for surveillance, what you should actually be saying is, can I uncover the things that I am looking for? You know, can I find the words, the phrases, the signals, Mark, that are in there? And so I would challenge anyone who say, I've got a transcription tool, therefore I've done my job. I would say that actually transcription is just one step on a long journey. You know, once you've got your transcription tool in place, understand what it is you're looking for, understand the type of data you're looking for, understand the types of things that you're expecting people to say, because an average transcription engine won't understand that. And particularly in financial services, where we've got people talking about AugSep, meaning August and September, which transcription tool out the box is going to understand that? So you've got to help the machine, Mark, understand what it is you're looking for. And with that, you take that step into you know, genuine useful surveillance, rather than just here's a bit of transcription.
Thank you for that, Nigel. So what we'll move on to, and this has been something that's always sort of been the impression that using your audio recordings can be costly, it can be ineffective and inefficient, potentially due to all of those points that Nigel was speaking about there, with the poor quality, the technology that's not great, it's old. So Mark, what impact has and does this have on the use and the adoption of people actually wanting to do this and seeing value out of it? Yeah,
it's a good point, Max, because, you know, Nigel and I have just been waxing lyrical about what can be done and how it should be done, but then there's the practicality of what is done. Yeah, there is no doubt that, you know, there are still some legacy systems, as Nigel explained, out there, and you know, that doesn't mean to say that they're not usable. It just means that you know, you need to be very sure of what you do use and what's capable from that. It's not that it's black and white, it's a bit of gray in there, so that, you know, there is legacy data that can be used, but not as great as some of the things Nigel said. And I would add that, you know, the revolution created by working from home pandemic, which has driven people to new tools at home, such as Zoom and Teams that we're on here today, actually improves the quality of the data that comes from it. So far from it should I be saying that the pandemic has created good things, but part of the digital journey is these tools now are becoming more pervasive. And I think that's a good thing if you want to get value from your data. But to address your question, Max, there's a number of things here. voice, without a shadow of a doubt, for the 10 years that Citycom's been in existence, has been seen as the poor relation. It's been the difficult piece of data to actually work with. I don't think anybody necessarily disregards the value that is held within the content of voice communications. And once again, Nigel's articulated some of those around not just the negativity of spotting insider trading, but actually, being able to automate and save money in manual intervention around things like trade reconciliation and automating voice trade sales, or at least supporting the voice trade sale, which is quite a manual exercise at the moment. But nevertheless, voice has been left behind generally. Yeah, and I think Nigel also said that there was a point in time, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, where everybody thought that no one was ever going to speak to each other again, and we'd all gone for lots and lots of big fingers, because all we were going to do was text from smartphones, and the world's changed again. Yeah, and voice is in vogue, and I see the youngsters of the world now actually not even sending messages; they now record a message and send it. Yeah, so voice has kind of come back to the table. Yeah. But unfortunately, the stigma, if you like, of voice being too difficult to work with and too costly is still there, and it's created an impression, I think, that said that the best thing is to ignore it. It's too difficult, whether it be understanding whether or not you've even recorded it, right the way through to actually trying to get the value from it, as Nigel has articulated. And it's easy to just simply think it's about transcription when it's actually about getting the right signals from it. Yeah, so the impact of all of this has been, generally speaking, for voice to be tailing behind. And if you were to plot a continuum curve or a maturity curve on this, I think there are still many organizations out there that put their head in their hands, when it comes to a voice. Yeah, so therefore pretty much do nothing with it. They probably do the bare minimum when it comes to the regulatory requirement, which is to record it, store it, and then probably the next step from that is they might spot check. Yeah, they might actually go into some of the voice calls, either to validate the quality of them or the fact that they're there, and then possibly to try and transcribe them or to listen to them and say, and that's the best we can do when it comes to voice surveillance or voice monitoring. Yeah, but as Nigel has said, that's even worse than trying to transcribe 85%, because the cost and the task of listening to thousands and thousands of hours of voice trading or voice recordings a day is both hugely costly manually and very dull. And I can't imagine anybody really wants to do that job, for 12 hours a day. Yeah. So that the first step is to come do nothing. The second is to do some sampling. Yeah. And then we have seen, and Nigel's just described it, the attempt to actually transcribe was probably the next step. Deploy a transcription engine, try and get it transcribed so that you can do some form of searching, keyword searching using lexicons, which kind of is in place in many places. And then moving forward from that, you get a bit more sophisticated, which is kind of again where Nigel was talking about, is let's talk about the signals. So rather than just did it match a word and oh dear, we've got a problem, there could be somebody saying the wrong thing, it becomes more intelligent voice. That's where that comes from. And the surfacing of clever signals identifies and more holistically across all voice where patterns of behavior or issues may arise, and it starts to give you a more accurate view of where you need to train your resources in terms of of actually doing the work around things like surveillance or monitoring. And then I suppose the ultimate place, which I guess everybody would love to get to, but perhaps they don't believe they can, is the ability to signal from those voice communications everything from the sentiment of the person on the call through to validation that they are the correct person and somebody hasn't barged into a call that shouldn't be there. And of course the content of that call is okay, and by the words okay I mean doesn't break the rules, which are either regulatory compliance or they could be conduct risk. One of the concerns we see when we're talking out there is, particularly not just with voice but with video, is You know, people working from home suffer from, you know, potential mental anxiety working from home. That's a big issue that companies need to consider. But the whole idea of being able to spot from voice and video whether people are struggling, I think is, you know, is a duty of care that's going to be a big issue. And unfortunately, the negative side is that when people are at home and they're not in an office environment and they're not as well managed by their peer group, things can go wrong. And we've seen some instances of that unfortunately find their way onto YouTube. Yeah, which might be seen as humorous, but they're not humorous if they are actually breaching legalities, you know, sexism, racism. So I think the ultimate thing is to really see voice as a valuable tool to be able to get to that point. But I don't believe, and perhaps just bring Nigel in for a last comment here, but before you say, I don't believe that the groundswell is towards the maturity that I've just described. And I think people have got stuck with voice very much at the beginning of trying to, you know, still suck in air when you say voice surveillance and bury their head in their hands and go, it's really difficult. I think it's not as difficult as people think. But Nigel, just a final view from you on that, just to kind of give us your view on what I just said there.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Mark, you and I have probably had this same conversation once a week for the last 10 years in many ways about, you know, the need for, you know, people to flip from seeing voice as a liability to voice being an asset. You know, yes, there's a cost in recording it. Clearly, there's a cost in storing it. So if you've done that, why not take the next step and think about, well, you know, can I make a bit of money out of this? Can I do something useful with it? You know, we're seeing some companies now are saying, well, there is an intersection between what you might call compliance and sales enablement. So, you know, look at wealth management, for example. You know, I've got high net worth individuals on the phone, and frankly, I'm trying to flog them more stuff. I mean, let's face it, you know. But on the other hand, I also need to make sure that my agents, my client managers, don't say things they're not supposed to. So that's a really nice intersection there between the compliance use case and the sales enablement use case. So, you know, we're beginning to see some companies adopt that, but, you know, if you looked at it as a percentage, it's very low. I think that we're going to start to see a snowball going forward. I think we've all got used to the fact that we've now got to record everything because we're sitting at home. When one or two companies begin to break ranks and you begin to see, you know, those press releases going out about this company, you know, using voice technology for compliance and for sales enablement, you know, they're making money out of this. I think it will help change people's minds. It will change the skepticism. You know, I can say from personal experience that it's not as expensive and it's not as difficult as people think it is. You know, I'm not saying it's not hard, but what I'm saying is it's not as difficult as people think. So yeah, I think we're just at the beginning, Mark, of the change in attitude, the one that we've been predicting for 10 years. Maybe 2022 is genuinely the year of voice.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nigel, for that. So what I'm going to do, just from the audience, and kind of sort of wrap it up now, as we've got 2 minutes left, is I'm going to ask one last question from the audience and get some feedback as we've now spoken about some of those challenges and see where people are on that. But it'd be interesting for each of you to consider where you are on that sort of maturity curve and your appetite to move upwards and enjoy more of the value that you can get from your voice asset that you already have captured and stored. It can be your most valuable asset, voice, but like most assets, it does require some mining. So on our next LinkedIn event, what we'll be talking about is how you do that and how you get the gold from your mining. So we're at the end of the session. Mark and Nigel, thank you very much for your participation. Thank you everybody else for attending. The session has been recorded, so if you want to rewatch it or share with any of your colleagues, it will be out on the LinkedIn event, plus it will be going out on our LinkedIn and website. We'll be summarizing the points from the event, so please look out for those in the coming days. And the next event in the series is on the 12th of April. As I said, it'll be around mining your voice, so we've named it Gold. And we'll be creating the LinkedIn page and inviting everybody to that event too. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.